a monthly web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues, and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy.
Coming up this week.
Well, it's a hybrid, really, of I suppose a traditional convention with a festival.
Hello everybody, my name's Hennis, and my friend Mr. Simon from Denmark thinks that I'm a Gnostic Archon. Well, you can't really argue with somebody from Denmark because they've got mermaids and they make my favourite biscuits. So, maybe I am, I don't know.
Well, Hennis, if the secret ruler of 365 levels is indeed an anthropomorphic chicken who is mainly motivated by biscuits, I think that would explain the modern world very well.
Mr. John, what's in this episode of On the Track?
Well, Hennis, in this episode we're meeting a guy called Matt Page, who's telling us all about an event he's organising this September.
I really like the old credits.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and welcome to another episode of our flagship show, On the Track. But before we start, here is a special treat for you all, the welcome return of the Chicken Corps. What would you do if the chickens wore a hat? Would you say, goodness me, well look at that? What would you do if the chickens had funny things on their heads? Would you think it was really good or just something I said? Yes, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, my name is Jonathan Downs. I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, which is the English-speaking world's largest, we think, the longest standing, and we certainly believe the best mystery animal research group. And every Saturday afternoon we bring you this show. It's called On the Track. As an adjunct to that, every Wednesday evening we bring you another show which is called On the Track Extra. And on the last Wednesday of every month we bring you something imaginatively called the Last Wednesday of the Month show, in which me and the lovely Vivian Powell, together with our regular team of V. McCrinnan, Dave Scott and Ian Squibbs, together with specially invited special guests, I've used the word special twice in the same sentence there, but who cares, discuss and debate and generally make fun of the latest developments in the Fortean zoological world. But I've told you about the shows, but what's in them? Well, they are a mixture, a melange, a muddle, I'm sure there's other things beginning with M. Lauren, what begins with M?
Moss, of course.
Thanks, honey. I think I can work with that. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are a moss of a show because we're primitive, we're green, and my mother used to make little gardens in soup bowls out of us. Well, we've decided all about how the show is organised and when it is, but what's in it? Well, it consists of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. And if you don't know what surreality is, well, go and ask him. I'm sure he knows.
I think surreality is very interesting indeed.
So, Matt, I know you've told me all about this before, but tell everybody out in listener land, what is Strange Days all about?
Well, it's a hybrid really of I suppose a traditional convention with a festival. So obviously we have talks in the daytime, fascinating speakers that you're probably all familiar with. Some extremely well-known faces, including that one there, of course. And then at night time we turn over to entertainment. So I think the difference between this and a normal, I hate to use the word convention, but the normal gathering of this type is that there's an equal emphasis on interesting music and stuff to do in the evening time. And obviously the whole idea of camping under the stars in such a beautiful place is incredible. It's lovely down there. Always seems to be sunny there as well, I have to say, although I can't make any guarantees. And yeah, so that's basically it. It's a gathering of like-minded souls, not just to hear interesting speakers, but to hear interesting music and gain stimulation from that area as well.
Where is it?
It's at the Barge Inn in Wiltshire, which is very well-known location, especially for those who are around for the birth of crop circles. Because it was the first real destination that catered for people who were interested in that phenomenon, made space for them. And the Wagon and Horses, obviously, just previous to that for 6 months or a year, but very quickly found its true home at the Barge. In fact, they've dedicated the one of the rooms there is got a very famous roof painted with all the designs from the sort of early 90s. And it became a real mecca. So anybody looking out the crop circles would call in at the Barge for a pint or two, or stay at the campsite and talk about what they discovered in the daytime. So yeah, that's the place. The Barge Inn, Honey Street, Wiltshire, just underneath the Alton Barnes White Horse, and right adjacent to really the field where, if you remember the Led Zeppelin remasters cover, probably the most famous pictogram crop circle. I think it was 1991. That's where that formation was.
I've heard of the Barge. I've never been there, and I've always meant to go there. So this is a perfect excuse.
And you've also got the best room.
That's nice of you.
There's only three rooms, and you have one of them. So
see what a nice chap he is, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely smashing fellow. So why? How did you come up with the idea of it?
Well, I've been wanting to do it for ages. In fact, one of my friends phoned me the other day, who I've not spoken to for about 20 years, when he saw this, said, "Do you remember we used to talk about this years ago? When we used to talk about the Fortean time, this must have been back in the late 80s. And apparently I said to him, one day I'd like to do a festival with some bands and some of this weird stuff going on as well. What do you think of the idea?" And that must have been, 40 years ago or something. So I'd forgotten about that. But since then, I've kind of worked at I organised a sci-fi convention. That's a fairly geeky gathering. But again, the difference between that and other sci-fi conventions, festivals, is that the emphasis is on the entertainment. In fact, people go more for the entertainment than the signings and stuff. So I've been doing that for about the last, maybe getting on for 20 years. That's called the Sci-Fi Weekender. I manage the entertainment there, put the show on there, as it were. So yeah, and I've been talking with Brian Blessed backstage at that very gig about 3 years ago, and I kind of mentioned to him about this, and he was talking about, he's there doing Flash Gordon as he does all the time. Gordon's alive. I'm sure that will make an appearance at some point, but he really wanted to talk about other stuff, the Fortean adventures that he'd been on, the the expeditions to far off lands, cryptozoologist that he is. So he'd been to I think he's been looking for the orang pendek. He's been on the trail of the Yeti, many adventures in Tibet. So I just thought, well, maybe I should try and make this thing happen properly. And so I know the barge. I worked there quite a bit, helping out with the festivals, and put it to Lenny. And yeah, he said, and we didn't know if it would be of interest to other people, but there's apparently quite a lot of weirdos out there. So sold quite well.
Well, there are indeed quite a lot of weirdos out there, and a lot of them watch this show, so hopefully some of them are going to be going along.
That would be fantastic.
Brian Blessed, wonderful, isn't he?
Quite the raconteur.
He's just, apart from the fact he's shorter than you expect him to be.
Yes, yeah, I agree with that. He is very much shorter.
But I'm 6'7" and everybody's shorter than me. But he is so much bigger than you would ever expect. He's an enormous character.
Yeah.
With an enormous voice. And yes, boys and girls, even when you're sitting having a beer with him, he sounds just like he does when he's going, "Gordon's alive!" And his language is worse than mine.
His language is all part of the fun, I think. Slight warning, we'll have to go out before he goes on. I think there's about a dozen or so kids already signed up and a few of ours coming along. So, but I'm sure they've heard worse. It's very entertaining though. And obviously you wind him up. Well, you don't even need to wind him up because he's got everlasting batteries, and off he goes. And I'm trying to get a word in. I have given someone the task of interviewing him, but little do they know it's a rather poison chalice, because every time someone has that role, it's very difficult to get a word in. And Brian just goes off where he wants. So, but again, all part of the fun.
Oh God, yeah, he's just like one of those fireworks that you had to tie down, or else they would go all over the garden.
Like a rocket with the stick broken off.
Yes, I think that's the best way of putting it. So who else have you got on, apart from Brian Blessed and some fat cryptozoologist?
Well, there's some chap called John Downs, yes. Richard, obviously, is coming along. Richard Freeman.
Richard.
So, yeah, Richard's been quite instrumental to this whole thing. He's kind of local to where I live. I dropped him a line after reading, I think, the Dragon story in Fortean Times last December, I think it was in that issue. And I just thought, right, just going to reach out to him and say what I'm thinking of doing. Can he be of assistance? Do you want to meet up for a drink over Christmas? So we got together Christmas Eve, went out around town, Nuneaton of all places, God knows why, and hatched a little plan. And he was kind enough to give me your contact and recommend a few people who he thought would be good for it. So, so for the most part, most of these people have come through Richard or been recommended by him. So, obviously, we have Ian Simmons coming from Fortean Times.
Lovely chap.
So, news editor. Paul Bestall.
I interviewed him last week. He was on last week's show. So,
Mysteries and Monsters podcast he's got, hasn't it? So that's Peter Laws.
I've never met him, but he's fascinating.
Yeah, and he obviously knows an ordained priest. So I think his subject will be touching on the role of. I mean, if the subject has changed slightly, because it was the role of the church in. So the updated presentation subject is haunted by belief, why we're drawn to ghosts. So it's all about why do ghost stories continue to grip us. So yeah, a nice bit of ghostly.
That's interesting.
Action. Yeah. Everything from psychology, theology, folklore, all wrapped into. I'm going to be very interested in that one. Chap called. Do you know Christian Jensen Roma?
I know him. I've never actually met him, but yes, very interesting guy.
Yeah. Again, he's his CJ's Borderlands Facebook page, which deserves a few more followers than it has at the minute because he's very prolific and he posts a lot on there, and it's all fascinating stuff. So I would recommend having a look at that. I think it's just called CJ's Borderlands, but he's coming along. Obviously, he'll be talking about. Says he looking looking at the website. 30 years amongst the dead. So Christian's got a background in ghost hunting, obviously, and yeah. So look, we have obviously this chap called Rob Irving, who is, I don't know if you've ever met Rob, but he's one of the first kind of well-known, how should we say, crop circle specialists. So
I know of him. I don't know.
Yeah, fascinating writer. I used to read his articles a long time ago and find them quite.
I've read his stuff. He's a very good writer.
Yeah, and he's written some incredible books. And obviously, we're going to be talking about kind of crop circles as a form of art expression, but also I think touching on some of the anomalous phenomena that occurs around, not necessarily the circles themselves, but around the circles. Rob Whitehead's coming along again.
I've known Rob for years.
Yeah, and he'll be talking about the bogus social workers, which if you know that story, that's one I remember reading about. That was fascinating. Kind of like Men in Black, I suppose you could call them, type of thing. That's how I remember the story anyway. But I'm looking forward to revisiting that. Hunt Emerson is going to be there, obviously.
I've known him for years.
Yeah.
Lovely man.
So he'll have a little stand. He'll be able to draw you, and draw anybody with their choice of phenomena. And he's requested to be in the room where the talks are, because we've not got. It's a little bit of a departure from the normal village hall or four walls, shall we say. It's more, I've decided to put all of the talks outside in the marquee. So it'll be a little bit more rustic, the setup. So there'll be a mixture of chairs, bales. We might try and get a couple of sofas in there with some coffee tables as well.
Is it flat enough for my wheelchair to get through?
Yes, definitely flat. It's definitely flat enough for that. Yeah. And also I thought that seeing as most people are going to be camping, they may even want to bring their own chairs into that. So we're going to make it as cozy as possible. But the point being that it's quite a nice. I'm getting more space there. I think I'm going to do all the talks in there now. I was going to do a mixture of some inside. It's a lovely venue, as I say, but I think outside, and for that reason, what I'm trying to secure at the minute is just the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle is a large LED screen at the back, so we'll be able to do some good intro videos for people, and obviously you'll be able to project on there quite nicely. Problem is, because it's outdoors, it needs to be bright, so that's my little thing I'm trying to make happen, which is just one more little thing to do with that. Obviously we have the Justin Chubb and Tim Downey, who again have the Folklands podcast. I don't know if
I don't know them.
Well, Justin, both of them are TV celebrities. So Justin had his own show called This Is Jinsey, which is, how can I describe it? Very, very weird. It's going back probably, I would think it's around about the same time as the Mighty Boosh. And they're different, but they're similarly surreal. So I've started. There's not many episodes on YouTube, so I'm not managed to catch up with it properly yet, and I don't think it's on the platforms. But yeah, you might remember him from there. And obviously,
I haven't watched television regularly in years. So
no. Well, the pair of them are extremely entertaining, and they're going to be talking about the eighth wonder of the world. The Curious Case of Jeff the Talking Mongoose.
Oh, brilliant.
So, Nandor Fodor, and the story that Simon Pegg. So, I mean, I actually quite enjoyed the film, but I know a lot of people hated it. But I think anything that looks at those kind of subjects and brings them to the public attention, it's got to be a good thing.
Yeah, I saw it. I was fairly underwhelmed by it.
A lot. I think that's the general consensus I've heard from it. But obviously, I just like the fact it was such a random story for someone to have picked up on, really. I mean, I've heard of it, and obviously Simon Pegg, who he's clearly into this sort of thing, and he's into comics and that kind of stuff as well. So I think his interests are quite, it'd be nice to have him as a guest, wouldn't it? But I don't think that's going to happen. Not yet. But then he could tell us all about it.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, says, don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you'll miss the new episodes.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
If you've been affected by any of the topics in today's episode, you can just bugger off, because we don't give a monkeys. Bloody well get a grip. Sort your own bloody problems out rather than ringing up somewhere.
That was a public information film.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to say a big thank you to my guest this time, Matt Page, who will be back next week for the second part of our conversation, and whom I'm going to be seeing in person. And I hope I'll be seeing a lot of you in person as well at the Strange Days Festival in September. I'm really looking forward to this. I haven't been to a festival of any sort in many years, and I'm particularly looking forward to seeing the man with the homemade musical robots, who I interviewed for Gonzo magazine years ago. Fantastically eccentric, weirdo, lovely man. And I'm looking forward to seeing the band Henge. And of course, quite a few of the people on the, well, most, I think, of all the people on the Fortean list. Big thank you to everybody but for whom this show wouldn't go out. I want to say a big thank you to my producer, Louis, who's still in South Carolina, now in gainful employment. And I want to say a big thank you to Graham Inglis, Deputy Director of the CFZ, and my carer, who's the bloke, amongst other things, apart from the fact that at the moment he's upstairs trying to get our new drone to work, but he's also the guy who takes me to the hospital, pushes me around in my wheelchair, and all the other shit that needs to be done. And I want to say a big thank you to Richard Freeman and to V. McCrinnan, and of course to Gwyn Palmer, who is my chosen heir in this. She's going to take over the reins of this ridiculous circus when I finally hang my hat up. This is the hat, which I'm not hanging up just yet, but just to show it does come off my head. Thank you, Gwyn, for everything you do, and for letting me borrow your children to appear in my ridiculous skits on this show. I'm going to be back on Wednesday. What am I talking about on Wednesday? Well, I can actually tell you. I think I can tell you. Because, here we go. Whoopity whoop. Get open the YouTube Studio app. And you'll see that this we have, I believe, Richard Muirhead talking about flying killer snakes and all sorts of other horrific things that are going to be in the next issue of Flying Snake that he's working on at the moment. And I'll be back next week, as I said, for the second part of my interview with Matt Page. So, are you listening, Mr. McCrinnan? Because if you are listening, Mr. McCrinnan, I'm going to be back here Saturday with Matt Page. And if you're there watching the show, Mr. McCrillen. I'll be there doing all the gubbins I normally do on a Saturday afternoon. I'll be doing the live chat and the notifications and the emails and the last minute troubleshooting and all the other crap that I do. And if I'm there doing all my gubbins and you're there watching, I'm most certainly going to be... Come on. Wait for it. Seeing you.